I stared at the gleaming red Jaguar F-Type parked in my parents' driveway, and something inside me finally snapped. 10 years of being the responsible one, the good daughter, the reliable sister, gone in an instant. The same instant I realised my brother had used my daughter's surgery fund to buy himself a sports car. My name is Gianna, and I just discovered my family stole $150,000 from my 8-year-old daughter. I'd spent the last decade meticulously saving every penny I could for Skylar's spinal surgery. Working overtime at the accounting firm, taking side jobs, selling everything that wasn't essential. My little girl needed that operation before she turned 10, or the damage would become permanent. "Isn't she beautiful?" Stuart's voice carried across the lawn as he strutted toward me, running his hand along the car's hood. "Got a great deal too. Sometimes things just work out perfectly, right?" I couldn't breathe. Just hours earlier, Mum and Dad had sat me down in their living room, wringing their hands as they explained how they'd temporarily borrowed from Skylar's medical fund to help Stuart with a house down payment. "Gianna!" Mum called from the porch. "Come inside, dear. We need to discuss this as a family." I followed them into the house, my legs moving on autopilot. The familiar family photos lining the hallway seemed to mock me now. All those forced smiles, Stuart always front and centre, me always slightly out of frame. "Look," Stuart started as we gathered in the living room. "I know you're upset, but this is just a short-term thing. I'll pay it back as soon as my new business venture takes off." "Business venture?" My voice came out barely above a whisper. "That's what you call a sports car?" "Now, Gianna," Dad interjected, "your brother had a very good reason." "The money was for Skylar's surgery," I finally exploded. "She needs that operation in less than 6 months." Mum reached for my hand. I pulled away. "Sweetheart, family helps family. Skylar will understand." "Understand what?" I cut her off. "That her uncle's midlife crisis is more important than her being able to walk properly?" Stuart rolled his eyes. "You're being dramatic. It's not like she's dying." The casual cruelty of his words hit me like a physical blow. I turned to my parents, searching their faces for any sign of support, but found only the same enabling expressions they'd worn my entire life. "How did you even access the account?" I demanded. "It was in my name." Mum looked away. We used the power of attorney you gave us last year when you were in the hospital with pneumonia. We never revoked it." The betrayal was complete. I'd trusted them, again, and they'd proven me wrong, again. "I'll have the money back in 6 months, tops," Stuart said, checking his phone absently. "Graham and I have this amazing opportunity." "Skylar's surgery is scheduled for next month," I said flatly. The room fell silent. Mom's face paled slightly, but Stuart just shrugged. "So reschedule it. These things happen all the time." I stood up, my hands shaking. "These things happen? These things happen? Do you have any idea how long the waiting list is? How many strings I had to pull to get this slot?" "Gianna," Dad's voice held a warning tone, "you need to calm down." "Calm down?" I laughed, and it sounded slightly hysterical even to my own ears. "You stole my daughter's future, and you want me to calm down?" "Borrowed," Mom corrected gently. "We borrowed it, and we'll make it right." I looked at them, really looked at them. Mum's perfectly maintained appearance, Dad's expensive watch, Stuart's designer clothes. All the signs had been there for years, but I'd chosen to ignore them. The golden boy could do no wrong, and I was just the hysterical daughter who needed to trust in family. Through the window, I could see the Jaguar's red paint gleaming in the afternoon sun. My daughter's surgery fund, transformed into a toy for my spoiled brother. "You're right," I said quietly, surprising them all. "Family does help family." They visibly relaxed, probably thinking I was giving in like always. But as I walked out of that house, my mind was already racing through the contingency plans I'd put in place years ago, the careful legal framework I'd constructed when they'd begged me to handle the family finances after Stuart's first scandal. They had no idea what was coming. I got into my sensible Honda Civic and took out my phone. With trembling fingers, I typed a message to my friend Hadley. "It's time. Activate Protocol 7. Then I drove home to my daughter, who was waiting for me to make everything right. And this time I would, just not in the way anyone expected. Skylar was already asleep when I got home, her favourite stuffed giraffe tucked under one arm. I watched her chest rise and fall, trying to memorise every detail of her peaceful face. Tomorrow, I'd have to tell her we needed to postpone her surgery. The thought made me physically ill. My phone buzzed. Hadley. Protocol 7 activated. Want to meet? I texted back quickly. Usual place. 1 hour. The late-night diner was nearly empty when I arrived. Hadley sat in our regular booth, her laptop already open. She pushed a coffee toward me as I slid in across from her. You look like hell, she said bluntly. They took everything, Hadley. Every cent of Skylar's fund. She let out a low whistle. For Stuart again? He bought a Jaguar. My voice cracked. A fucking Jaguar with my daughter's surgery money. Jesus Christ. Hadley's fingers flew across her keyboard. Okay, show me exactly what happened. I pulled out my phone, showing her the bank statements and the power of attorney documents. Her eyes narrowed as she read. They really thought they could just take it? They don't think they did anything wrong, I said, the afternoon's conversation replaying in my head. Mom actually said Skylar would understand someday. Like my 8-year-old should be grateful her uncle stole her future. Hadley's typing grew more intense. Remember 4 years ago when Stuart's first investment scheme fell apart? How could I forget? He'd nearly bankrupted the family with his foolproof cryptocurrency venture. I'd spent months cleaning up that mess, restructuring accounts, setting up new trusts. That's when you had me help you build those fail-safes into the family accounts, Hadley continued. The ones they never read about because they were too busy praising Stuart's entrepreneurial spirit. I leaned forward. Are they still active? Every single one. She turned her laptop around, showing me a complex web of financial protocols. The moment they accessed Skylar's fund without proper authorization, they triggered the first layer of security measures. We just needed to activate the response. My phone buzzed again. A text from Stuart. Hey sis, about today. Don't be mad. I'll make it up to you. I showed it to Hadley. She snorted. Should we show him exactly how mad you are? Walk me through it again, I said, pulling out my own laptop. I want to make sure everything's legal. Completely legal. You're the designated financial proxy for the family trust. When you restructured everything after Stuart's crypto disaster, you included specific clauses about fund misappropriation. The moment they took Skylar's money, they violated those terms. I remembered that day clearly. They'd all signed the papers without reading them, too relieved that I was fixing Stuart's mess. Mom had actually patted my head like I was still 12, saying, "This is why we need our Gianna." Always so good with boring details. My phone lit up with another text, this time from Mom. "Darling, please call us. We're worried about you." I turned the phone face down. Show me what happens next. Hadley pulled up a document. Phase 1 starts tonight. All family-linked accounts will be frozen for security review. They'll assume it's a bank error at first. Then tomorrow, the real fun begins, I finished. Are you sure about this? Hadley asked, her finger hovering over the enter key. Once we start, there's no going back. Your family... They stopped being family the moment they chose Stuart's car over Skylar's health. She nodded and pressed enter. Done. By morning, every account connected to the Ramos family trust will be locked down tight. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. For the first time since seeing that red Jaguar, I could breathe properly. What about Skylar's surgery? Hadley asked softly. I called Dr. Matthews earlier. He's willing to hold her slot for 2 more weeks. After that, I took a deep breath. After that, we'll have the money back, with interest. My phone buzzed again. Stuart. Hey, weird question, but are you having any issues with your bank accounts? Getting some strange alerts? Hadley raised an eyebrow. That was fast. I picked up my coffee, letting its warmth seep into my cold hands. You know what the worst part is? They'll never see it coming. They still think I'm just the reliable one, the boring accountant who fixes their mistakes. Time to show them exactly how dangerous a boring accountant can be, Hadley said, closing her laptop with a snap. I drove home in the dark, rehearsing what I'd tell Skylar tomorrow, but for the first time, I felt something besides despair. My daughter would get her surgery, and my family. They were about to learn that karma has a very detailed paper trail. The next morning started with a bang, literally. Someone was pounding on my front door at 7 a.m. I already knew who it was before I opened it. Stuart burst in, his designer shirt wrinkled and his face red. What the hell is going on with the accounts? Good morning to you too, I said calmly, closing the door. Would you like some coffee? Don't play dumb, Gianna. Everything's frozen. Even my personal accounts. I poured myself a cup of coffee, taking my time. Have you called the bank? Of course I called the bank. They kept talking about some trust violation review and directed me to the family lawyer. He ran his hands through his hair. Mom and Dad can't access anything either. That sounds serious, I said, sipping my coffee. Maybe you should call Graham, see if he can help. Stuart's face darkened. Graham's not answering my calls. The car dealership is threatening to repossess the Jaguar because the payment bounced. Mommy! Skylar's voice came from the hallway. She stood there in her favourite unicorn pyjamas, looking confused. Uncle Stuart, why are you yelling? Hey, sweetheart, I said quickly. Why don't you go get dressed? We'll have breakfast soon. After she disappeared back to her room, Stuart lowered his voice to a harsh whisper. Fix this, now. Fix what exactly? The accounts you stole from? The surgery fund you emptied? Don't be dramatic. This is different. This is my life we're talking about. My phone buzzed. A text from Kira, our family lawyer. Emergency meeting requested by your parents. My office, 10 a.m. I showed Stuart the message. Looks like we'll sort this out soon enough. He grabbed his keys, heading for the door. This better be a mistake, Gianna. Because if you had anything to do with it... You'll what? I asked softly. Take more money from my daughter? He slammed the door on his way out. 2 hours later, I sat in Kira's office, watching my family unravel. Mum was crying quietly while Dad paced the room. Stuart kept checking his phone, growing paler by the minute. Kira spread several documents across her desk. I've reviewed the situation. The trust security protocols were automatically triggered by an unauthorised withdrawal from a protected medical fund. But we had power of attorney, Mum protested, which was specifically for medical decisions during Gianna's hospitalisation, Kira corrected. Using it for financial transactions outside that scope triggered the trust's abuse clauses. What abuse clauses? Dad demanded. We never agreed to any of that. Kira pulled out a thick document. Actually, you did. Right here, when you signed the trust restructuring agreement 4 years ago. After Stuart's cryptocurrency incident, Stuart jumped up. This is ridiculous. Just override it. I can't, Kira said. These protections were legally bound to the trust when you all signed. The only person who can lift them is the trust's designated financial proxy. She looked at me. That would be Gianna. All eyes turned to me. I met their stares calmly. Gianna, Mum whispered, why, please. We're your family. Family? I pulled out my own folder. Let me show you something about family. I spread out medical bills, surgery quotes, and Skylar's treatment timeline. This is what family looks like to me. My daughter's future. The future you stole for a sports car. We can fix this, Dad said quickly. We'll find another way to get Skylar's surgery money. How? I asked. By selling the Jaguar. Oh wait, that payment just bounced, didn't it, Stuart? Stuart's phone buzzed again. His face went white as he read the message. Graham just backed out of our deal. Says his accounts are being audited. Interesting timing, I said. Kira cleared her throat. There is a way to resolve this. The trust protocols include a restoration clause. If the misappropriated funds are returned in full, plus a 20% penalty for breach of trust, the accounts can be unfrozen. 20%? Stuart exploded. That's highway robbery. No, I said quietly. That's consequences. Mom reached for my hand across the desk. Darling, please, we can work this out as a family. I stood up, gathering my things. You're right. We can. Return Skylar's surgery fund, all of it, plus the penalty, and this ends. Otherwise, I shrugged. I hear trust audits can take months. As I walked out of Kira's office, I heard Stuart's voice crack. Wait! How long do we have? I turned back one last time. Skylar's surgery slot is held for 13 more days. After that, she goes back on the waiting list. Your choice. The door closed behind me, cutting off their protests. My phone buzzed with a message from Hadley. Phase 2 ready when you are. I smiled. The game was just beginning. 3 days after the meeting at Kira's office, I was reviewing documents at my kitchen table when my doorbell rang. This time, it was Graham, Stuart's business partner, looking decidedly less polished than usual. Is Stuart here? He asked, peering past me into the house. No, Haven't seen him since the lawyer's office. Graham shifted uncomfortably. Listen, I need to talk to you. It's about the car. I let him in, curious. He sat at my kitchen table, fidgeting with his expensive watch. The Jaguar's registration, he started, then stopped. Something's wrong. The dealership says it's not in Stuart's name anymore. Oh? I kept my voice neutral. It's listed under something called Skylar Ramos Trust. That's your daughter's name, I smiled. Interesting, isn't it? Almost like karma. Look, Graham leaned forward. I know Stuart messed up, but this is getting out of hand. The IRS is asking questions about our business accounts. That does sound serious. Cut the act, he snapped. We both know you're behind this. Whatever Stuart did, this is between you and him. Leave me out of it. My phone buzzed. A text from Hadley. Phase 2 complete. All assets traced and tagged. I showed Graham my screen. See this? Every transaction, every account, every asset bought with my daughter's stolen money has been flagged, including your joint ventures with Stuart. The colour drained from his face. You can't do that. I already did. Maybe next time you'll think twice before helping someone launder stolen medical funds through luxury car purchases. He stood up so quickly his chair toppled over. You're bluffing. No way you have that kind of power. Try me. I pulled up another document on my phone. By the way, how's that offshore account in the Caymans working out? The one you and Stuart opened last week? Graham practically ran from my house. I gave him 10 minutes before calling Hadley. He's heading straight to Stuart's, isn't he? Yep, Hadley confirmed. GPS tracker on his car shows him breaking speed limits to get there. Want me to trigger phase 3? Not yet. Let them stew for a bit. Later that afternoon, Mom showed up. She looked tired, her usually perfect makeup slightly smudged. Your father's having chest pains, she said without preamble. Nice try, Mom. His annual physical was last month. Perfect health, as usual. She deflated, sinking onto my couch. What do you want from us, Gianna? To destroy the whole family? I want my daughter's surgery fund back, with interest. We don't have that kind of money just lying around. Everything's frozen. Not everything. I sat across from her. The house isn't part of the trust. Neither is your jewellery collection. Or Dad's vintage car. Mom's hand flew to her throat, where her signature pearl necklace lay. You wouldn't. Wouldn't I? You stole from my child. What makes your pearls more important than her health? Because we're your parents, she burst out. We raised you, supported you, loved you. Loved me? I laughed bitterly. You enabled Stuart while I cleaned up his messes. You took my daughter's future without a second thought. That's not love, Mom. That's abuse. Her phone rang. Stuart's ringtone. She answered it on speaker, hands shaking. Mom! Stuart's voice was frantic. Graham just left! The feds are investigating our accounts. All of them. Calm down, sweetheart, Mum said automatically. Calm down. Everything's falling apart. The car's being repossessed. Graham's threatening to expose our deals. And now this. It's all her fault. He was practically screaming now. I took the phone from Mum's trembling hands. No, Stuart. It's yours. Actions have consequences. You bitch, he snarled. You think you're so clever with your financial tricks? I'll sue you for everything you have. With what money? I asked sweetly. Your accounts are frozen, remember? Besides, you might want to save your legal funds for the IRS audit. I hung up and handed the phone back to Mum. She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. When did you become so cruel? She whispered. The moment you chose Stuart's luxury car over Skylar's ability to walk properly. I stood up. You have 10 days left to return the money. After that, phase 3 begins. What's phase 3? I walked to my front door and opened it. Pray you don't find out. After she left, I called Hadley again. How's the asset tracking going? Found 3 more hidden accounts. Want me to lock those down too? I thought about Mom's pearls, Stuart's rage, and most importantly, Skylar's upcoming doctor's appointment. Do it! And Hadley, activate the media protocols. It's time everyone knew exactly what kind of business Stuart and Graham have been running. You sure? That's going nuclear. I looked at Skylar's latest X-ray hanging on my fridge, her curved spine a stark reminder of what was at stake. They went nuclear first. They just didn't expect me to survive the blast. The local business section headline read, Prominent real estate developer under investigation for financial irregularities. Below it was a photo of Stuart and Graham at their last charity gala, both smiling smugly at the camera. I wondered if they were still smiling now. My phone hadn't stopped ringing since the story broke. I ignored calls from my parents, but answered when Kira's number flashed on the screen. "Your brother's in my office," she said without preamble. "With your parents. They're demanding an emergency meeting. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I dropped Skylar at my neighbour's house before driving to Kira's office. The moment I walked in, Stuart lunged at me, but Dad held him back. "You evil, manipulative witch!" he shouted. "You've ruined everything!" "Sit down, Stuart," Kira commanded. "Everyone, please take a seat." Mum was crying again, dabbing her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. Stuart paced like a caged animal. "The media exposure has complicated things," Kira began diplomatically. "Complicated?" Stuart laughed hysterically. "Our investors are pulling out. Graham's threatening to turn state's evidence. All because my psychotic sister... All because you stole from my daughter," I cut in. "How's that Jaguar working out for you?" "Enough!" Dad slammed his hand on the desk. "This ends now. Gianna, whatever point you're trying to make." "My point?" I pulled out my phone and played a video of Skylar trying to walk at her last physical therapy session, her little face scrunched in pain. "This is my point." The room fell silent except for Mum's quiet sobs. "The surgery fund wasn't just money," I continued. "It was Skylar's future, her chance at a normal life. But you treated it like Stuart's personal piggy bank." "We can fix this," Dad said, his voice hoarse. "Just tell us what you want. I've been telling you what I want for days. Return the money, all of it, plus the penalty." "And if we can't?" Stuart asked, his swagger finally cracking. I smiled. "Then tomorrow's headline will be even more interesting. Want to guess what the IRS found in those offshore accounts?" Stuart went pale. "You wouldn't. Try me." Mum suddenly stood up, removing her pearl necklace with trembling hands. "Will this help? They're worth at least 30,000. "The beach house," Dad added quietly. "We can sell it." "Now you want to sell things?" I laughed bitterly. "Funny how that works." Kira cleared her throat. "I have the paperwork ready for asset liquidation. But there's something else." She slid a document across the desk. "Graham came to see me this morning. He's willing to testify about certain financial arrangements." Stuart collapsed into a chair. "He can't. He was part of everything." "Exactly," I said. "And now he's saving himself by throwing you under the bus." "Please," Mum whispered. "He's your brother. And Skylar is my daughter. The daughter you all betrayed." I stood up. "You have 7 days left. Sell whatever you need to sell. Liquidate whatever you need to liquidate. But if that money isn't back in Skylar's account by then, I release everything." "Everything?" Stuart's voice cracked. "The fake invoices, the shell companies, the creative accounting you've been doing with investor funds. Everything." Dad stepped forward. "You destroy our entire family over this? You destroyed it the moment you chose him over my daughter." I walked to the door, then turned back. "Oh, and Stuart, the repo men are coming for the Jaguar tomorrow. I'd clear out your personal items if I were you." As I left, I heard Mom start crying again and Stuart cursing. My phone buzzed with a text from Hadley. "Local news wants to interview Graham. Should I give them his number?" I thought about Skylar's upcoming doctor's appointment, about the surgery slot we were about to lose, about 10 years of watching my family enable Stuart's selfishness. "Not yet," I texted back. "Let's give them 7 days to do the right thing." Another text came through, this time from Graham. "Please, I'll pay back my share. Just keep my name out of the papers." I smiled as I got into my car. "Should have thought of that before you helped my brother steal from a disabled child. The next week would determine everything. Either my family would finally face consequences for their actions, or they'd learn exactly how much damage a quiet accountant could do with the right documentation. Either way, Skylar would get her surgery, and that was all that really mattered." The repo men came for the Jaguar at dawn. I watched from my car across the street as Stuart stood in his driveway, screaming into his phone while they hooked up his precious car to the tow truck. 4 days left until my deadline, and still no sign of the money. My phone rang. Hadley. You need to see this. Graham just tried to transfer a large sum from a hidden account we hadn't flagged yet. How much? 50,000. Looks like he's trying to cut a separate deal. I pulled up my banking app. Where was he sending it? That's the interesting part. A law firm specialising in witness protection and immunity deals. Forward everything to Kira, I said. And freeze that account too. Later that afternoon, Mum showed up at my office unannounced. She looked different. No designer clothes, no jewellery, her hair unstyled. I sold my entire collection, she said, placing a cheque on my desk. Pearls, diamonds, everything. It's 60,000. I looked at the cheque but didn't touch it. That's a start. A start? Her voice cracked. I just sold 30 years of memories. Funny how memories are worth more than your granddaughter's health. She sank into the chair across from me. Your father's selling his car collection. The beach house has 2 potential buyers, her hands twisted in her lap. Stuart's not doing well. Define not doing well. He's drinking. Graham won't take his calls. The business is falling apart. She leaned forward. Please, just give us more time. Skylar doesn't have more time. Her surgery slot expires in 5 days. I know, but... Her phone buzzed. The colour drained from her face as she read the message. What is it? The FBI just showed up at Stuart's office with a warrant. I smiled. Right on schedule. Schedule. Mum's eyes widened. You reported them? No, Graham did. About an hour ago, judging by your reaction. She stood up so quickly her chair toppled backward. I have to go. Stuart needs me. Of course he does. He always needs you. Just like he needed Skylar's surgery fund for his car. You're enjoying this, she accused, tears in her eyes. Watching your family fall apart. The family fell apart long ago, Mum. I'm just making sure Skylar doesn't pay the price for it anymore. After she left, I called Hadley. How much have they managed to pull together? With your mom's jewellery and the pending car sales, maybe 100,000. Still short by about 80 with the penalty? My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. Meeting at Kira's office, 7 p.m. Please come. The office was packed when I arrived. Stuart sat in the corner, looking dishevelled and reeking of alcohol. Graham was there too, avoiding everyone's eyes. Mum and Dad stood by the window, holding hands. Kira cleared her throat. Graham has agreed to provide evidence about certain financial irregularities in exchange for leniency. Traitor, Stuart muttered. The FBI investigation is focused primarily on the last 3 years of transactions, Kira continued. However, if the missing medical fund is restored immediately, we might be able to minimise the damage. Minimise? Stuart laughed bitterly. It's over. Everything's over. Not everything, I said. Return Skylar's money and I'll help contain this. Graham looked up. You can do that. I can redirect the investigation away from certain aspects, make it about recent events only, but I need the full amount, today. Dad stepped forward. We have most of it. The house buyers. Not good enough. I stood up. Full amount, today. Or tomorrow I release everything I have to the FBI. You'd send your own brother to prison? Mum whispered. You'd let your granddaughter suffer, I countered. Actually, don't answer that. You already did. Stuart suddenly lurched to his feet. Fine. You want your money? I have one last account. Cayman Islands. Was saving it for... Doesn't matter now. He pulled out his phone, hands shaking as he pulled up the banking app. 100,000. Will that cover it? Will that make you happy? I watched him type in the transfer details. Add the penalty amount, and we're done. You really are a cold-hearted bitch, he said, but his fingers kept moving. My phone pinged with a transfer notification. The full amount plus 20%. There, Stuart spat. You won. Happy now? I stood up, gathering my things. No, Stuart, I'm not happy. I'm just done. I looked at my family, really looked at them. I have a surgery consultation to schedule. Don't contact me again. As I walked out, I heard Mum start to cry and Stuart kick something. But for the first time in weeks, all I could think about was the smile on Skylar's face when I told her she was getting her operation after all. The morning of Skylar's surgery, I sat in the hospital waiting room, clutching a coffee I couldn't drink. Hadley sat beside me, working on her laptop as usual. Stuart's company officially filed for bankruptcy this morning, she said quietly. Graham took a plea deal. I don't want to know, I replied, watching the surgery board where Skylar's case number blinked steadily. Not today. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Miss Gianna, your daughter's asking for you. Skylar lay in the pre-op bed, looking tiny among all the machines. Her stuffed giraffe was tucked under one arm, a hospital bracelet around the other. Mommy? Her voice was small. I'm scared. I sat on the edge of her bed, smoothing her hair. I know, baby, but remember what Dr. Matthews said. When you wake up, you'll be on your way to feeling so much better. Will it hurt? They'll give you special medicine so you won't feel anything. I squeezed her hand. And I'll be right here when you wake up. Promise? Promise. A commotion in the hallway drew my attention. Through the window, I saw my parents arguing with a nurse. I'm her grandmother! Mom's voice carried through the glass. We have a right to be here! I stepped into the hallway, pulling the door closed behind me. No, you don't. Gianna, Dad started. Please. We just want to. To what? Show up now that it's convenient. Where were you when she needed you? We're still family, Mom insisted. Family? I laughed quietly. Family doesn't steal from children. Family doesn't choose a sports car over a child's health. Family doesn't... Ms. Gianna! Dr. Matthews appeared, clipboard in hand. We're ready to begin. I turned back to my parents. Leave! Now! Or I'll have security remove you. You can't keep us from her forever, Mum said, tears streaming down her face. Watch me. Back in Skylar's room, the anaesthesiologist was preparing his equipment. Skylar clutched her giraffe tighter. Mummy? I heard Grandma. Why is she crying? I took a deep breath. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, sweetheart. Big mistakes that hurt people they're supposed to love. Like when Uncle Stuart took my surgery money. My heart clenched. Of course she'd understood what was happening. Kids always understand more than we think. Yes, baby, like that. But you fixed it, she said with complete confidence. You always fix everything. The anaesthesiologist stepped forward. Time to start counting backward from 10, Skylar. I kissed her forehead and stepped back, watching as her eyes fluttered closed around 7. A nurse gently guided me out as they wheeled her toward the operating room. In the waiting room, Hadley had been joined by Kira, who looked uncomfortable in casual clothes instead of her usual suit. How are you holding up? She asked. Ask me in 6 hours. I checked my phone. A missed call from Stuart. Delete. The FBI interviewed your brother again this morning, Kira said carefully. He's cooperating now. I don't care. Gianna? No. I cut her off. Whatever's happening with Stuart, with the company, with any of it, I don't care. The only thing that matters is in that operating room. Hours crawled by. Hadley worked. Kira made phone calls. I stared at the surgery board, watching Skylar's case number move through different stages. Finally, Dr. Matthews appeared, still in his surgical scrubs. I stood on shaky legs. The surgery was successful, he said, smiling. We achieved full correction of the curvature. She's in recovery now. The relief hit me so hard I had to sit down. Hadley squeezed my shoulder. When can I see her? About 30 minutes. She's still coming out of anaesthesia. In the recovery room, Skylar looked pale but peaceful. Her stuffed giraffe was already back in its place beside her. A nurse was adjusting her IV when my parents appeared in the doorway again. Please, Mum whispered. Just let us see she's okay. I looked at my daughter's sleeping face, then back at them. 5 minutes, then you leave, and you don't come back unless she asks for you someday. They nodded, stepping quietly into the room. Mum reached for Skylar's hand but stopped short, as if afraid to touch her. She's going to be okay, Dad said, his voice rough. Yes, I replied. No thanks to you. They left before their 5 minutes were up. Through the window, I watched them walk away, Mum leaning on Dad, both looking older than I'd ever seen them. Skylar stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Mommy? I'm here, baby. I took her hand, just like I promised. Did they fix me? I smiled through my tears. Yes, sweetheart. They fixed everything. And sitting there, holding my daughter's hand as she drifted back to sleep, I finally let myself feel it all. The anger, the betrayal, the victory, and most of all, the relief. We were going to be okay. Just the two of us. That was all the family we needed. The autumn breeze rustled through the park as Skylar took her first unassisted steps on the playground. Each movement was cautious but confident, so different from the painful stumbling before her surgery. "Watch me, Mum," she called out, making her way across the wood chips. I sat on the bench, trying not to hover. Dr. Matthews said she needed to build confidence in her new abilities, but every parent instinct screamed to rush forward and catch her. My phone buzzed. Kira. "Stuart took the plea deal. 3 years, minimum security. Your parents are selling the house." I put the phone away without responding. Those people belonged to a different life now. "Mum!" Skylar's excited voice drew my attention. "I made it to the swings by myself!" As I watched her climb onto the swing, a familiar figure approached from the parking lot. Mum, looking smaller somehow in her non-designer clothes, stopped a few feet from my bench. "I saw her walking," she said softly, "all by herself." "Why are you here?" She held out an envelope. "This is for Skylar. It's everything we got for the house. I know it doesn't make up for what we did, but keep it." I didn't touch the envelope. "We don't need your money." "Please, Gianna, let me try to fix this." "Fix what exactly? The trust you broke? The family you destroyed? Some things can't be fixed with money, Mom. You taught me that." Skylar's laugh rang out across the playground as she swung higher. Mum watched her, tears streaming down her face. "She looks so happy," she whispered. "She is happy. She's healing. We both are." "Without us?" "That was your choice, not mine." Mum sat heavily on the far end of the bench. "Stuart reports to prison next week. Your father, he's not taking it well." "Still protecting him? Even now?" "No." She wiped her eyes. "No. I'm done protecting anyone. I miss my daughter. I miss my granddaughter." "You should have thought of that before stealing her future." "I know." She stood up, leaving the envelope on the bench. "We're moving to Florida, your father and I. Fresh start, I suppose. If you ever want to reach out, don't hold your breath." She nodded, taking one last look at Skylar before walking away. I watched her go, feeling nothing but a dull ache where anger used to burn. "Who was that lady?" Skylar asked, suddenly beside me. "Someone from before." She looked sad. I pulled her close, breathing in her familiar scent. Sometimes people make choices that make them sad for a very long time. "Like Uncle Stuart?" "Yes, baby, like Uncle Stuart." She picked up the envelope, turning it over curiously. "What's this?" I took it from her hands and stood up. Walking to the nearest trash can, I dropped it in without opening it. "Nothing we need." Skylar nodded, accepting this like she accepted most things, with simple, clear understanding. "Can we get ice cream?" "Ice cream sounds perfect." As we walked to the car, Skylar's steps steady and sure, my phone buzzed again. Hadley. "Graham's testimony went public. Stock market's reacting. Want the details?" I texted back. "No, that chapter's closed." At the ice cream shop, Skylar got chocolate with extra sprinkles. I watched her eat, marvelling at how straight she sat, how easily she moved. "Mum?" she asked, chocolate smeared on her chin. "Are you sad about your family?" I thought about it honestly. "No, sweetheart, I'm not sad. We have all the family we need right here. Just us. Just us. Plus Aunt Hadley who spoils you rotten," she giggled. "And we're okay?" "We're more than okay." I reached across the table to wipe her chin. "We're perfect." My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Dad. "I'm sorry for everything." I deleted it without responding and turned off my phone. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. Some families are better left in the past. Skylar finished her ice cream and stood up, moving with the grace that had been stolen from her for so long. "Ready to go home?" "Ready." I took her hand as we walked out into the sunshine. Behind us, a red Jaguar drove past. Someone else's car, someone else's story. I didn't even flinch at the sight. The past had no power over us anymore. We had something better than revenge now. We had tomorrow, and it was full of possibilities, each one as straight and true as my daughter's spine. "Race you to the car?" Skylar asked, already starting to run. I watched her go, her steps strong and sure, her laughter carried on the autumn wind. This was our victory, not in the money recovered or the family destroyed, but in every confident step my daughter took toward her future. And that was worth more than all the revenge in the world.